Welcome to the Unfading Truth Bible reading plan. Today we're reading Genesis chapter 8, verses 20 through 22. You didn't learn how to sin. It came quite naturally. Well, as we come to this 8th chapter of Genesis, the context is that Noah, his family, and all of the animals have just come out of the ark. We'll pick up our reading here in verse 20. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. This week we're looking at this second article of the third point of the Canons of Dort, continuing to understand what total depravity means, talking about how corruption spread through all the earth and through mankind. It says that human beings brought forth children of the same nature as themselves after the fall. That is to say, being corrupt, they brought forth corrupt children. The corruption spread by God's just judgment from Adam and Eve to all of their descendants, except for Christ alone, not by way of imitation, as in former times the Pelagians would have it, but by way of the propagation of their perverted nature. Well, was that great flood a symbol of God's justice or a symbol of his mercy? Well, of course, it was a symbol of both. The answer is yes. The flood narrative begins with these words in the 6th chapter of Genesis. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. God was certainly justified in raining his justice down upon his rebellious creation, drop by drop, until the whole earth was inundated, snuffing out all life. Well, not all life. You see, God in his great mercy preserved the life of Noah, his family, and 2 of every kind of animal. But as Noah and crew disembark their massive lifeboat and begin the process of resettling the newly washed earth, it becomes immediately clear that the root of the problem persisted. That God immediately makes a covenantal promise to them shouldn't be so surprising, for God always deals with his image bearers within a covenantal framework. But in the midst of the wonderful promises that God will never again destroy all living creatures in a flood, and that seasons will continue without ceasing, God makes it painfully clear that the issue which precipitated the flood in the first place will continue. God reminds us here that the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Sin is not a learned behavior. Certainly many specific sins are the result of people replicating what they've seen done by others, which is why the example parents set for subsequent generations is so critically important. But our sinful condition is something that we're born into. More than that, says King David, it's something that we're conceived in Psalm 51. So the story of the great flood is not just a giant do-over opportunity that God gives to man. Just a paragraph after God seals this covenant with creation by setting a rainbow in the sky, Noah and his sons have already fallen into the most grievous of sins. They weren't imitating the sins of others there, for there was nobody left to imitate. They were just following their heart. Sin and guilt is so intertwined with you that it's wrapped up in your DNA. This is why the New Testament emphasizes your need not just to change your behavior, but to change your very nature. You need to go from being in Adam and his sin to being grafted into Christ and his righteousness. Well, as you pray today, use the AAA prayer pattern. That's where you begin by acknowledging who God is. That's our first A, acknowledge. Today, open your prayer to our Father, who saved us because of his unfailing covenant love. Then as you pray, go on to get that second A, align your life with God's will. Pray that more and more you will die to the sinful nature that you were conceived in and come to new life in Christ. Then you can get to that third A and ask God for what it is that you need. Remember, everything else that you hear today will fade away, but the word of the Lord is unfading truth.